Grace, that box is garbage. Grandpa kept receipts from the 1980s. Uncle Russell's hand closed around the little cedar box like it was nothing. If you have ever watched a family throw away the one thing a dead man protected, stay with the last receipt. Because that afternoon, I learned some people do not bury secrets with the dead. They throw them in the trash. Put it down, I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. The farmhouse kitchen still smelled like old coffee, rain on wool coats, and the faint cedar scent from the box Grandpa Arthur had kept beside his chair for as long as I could remember. Russell turned toward me with a slow smile. Grace, don't start. I'm not starting anything. Grandpa told me not to let anyone touch that. My cousin Brooke folded a stack of dish towels into a cardboard box and sighed loudly. Everyone is grieving. Can you not make this about yourself for 5 minutes? I looked at her, then at the box. The brass latch was scratched from years of Grandpa's thumb pressing it open. When I was 12, he let me polish it with an old cotton cloth while he sat beside me and said, "Some things only look small because people don't know what they're holding." That memory hit my throat like a hard knot. Russell shook the box once. Something inside shifted. Paper, maybe. A key, maybe. Proof, Grandpa had called it once, when he thought I was too young to understand. It's junk, Russell said. Dad kept every bill, every receipt, every useless little note. Diane and I are clearing the place before it gets worse. Aunt Diane stood by the back door with a black trash bag in one hand. She gave me that soft smile people use when they want cruelty to sound like patience. Sweetheart, your grandfather was sentimental. That doesn't mean every old thing has meaning. It had meaning to him. Then let it go with him, she said. I felt my fingers go cold. Aunt Linda sat at the kitchen table with her coat still buttoned, twisting a tissue between her hands. Grace, maybe Russell knows best, she said. He handled Arthur's bills near the end. Russell nodded immediately. Exactly. I was here. I did the work. I dealt with the bank calls, the doctor letters, the overdue notices. Not Grace. I turned to him. I visited every Sunday. And then you left, he said. Some of us didn't get to play Granddaughter of the Year once a week. Brooke stopped folding towels. Russell. What, he said. It's true. The kitchen went quiet except for the rain tapping the window above the sink. I could feel the house listening. Grandpa's house had always been warm when he was alive. Even in winter, he kept the stove going and the radio low. Now the air felt thin and unfriendly, like every room had been emptied too fast. I stepped closer. Open it. Russell's eyebrows lifted. No. If it's junk, open it. Diane's smile faded. Grace, this is not the time. Then when is the time? After the trash truck comes? Russell's jaw tightened. He turned toward Diane and tossed the cedar box into the open trash bag. The sound it made was small. Too small for what it broke inside me. I moved before I thought. Don't. Diane pulled the bag back. Enough. That was Grandpa's. Everything in this house was Grandpa's, Russell snapped. The magazines, the cracked mugs, the broken radio, the old shoes by the porch. Are we supposed to build a shrine out of trash? I looked at the bag. The black plastic had swallowed the box almost completely, but one corner pushed against it, square and stubborn. My grandfather told me never to let anyone throw that away. Russell laughed once. That sounds like something he said when he was confused. The word landed wrong. Confused. Grandpa had been tired. He had been slower. His hand shook when he buttoned his cardigan. But his eyes were clear the last time I sat with him in the front room. Grace, he had whispered, if I'm not here to explain, ask for Pierce. And don't let Russell near the box. I had thought he was talking about some old family argument. I had thought there would be more time. I swallowed hard. He wasn't confused. Brooke crossed her arms. Grandpa said a lot of things at the end. I turned to her. Did he say them to you? Her mouth opened, then closed. Russell moved toward the hallway. That's enough. Diane, take that bag outside. I reached into my coat pocket and pressed the side button on my phone. The screen lit against my palm. I opened voice memo without looking down. My thumb hit record. It was the first smart thing I did that day. Diane tied the trash bag slowly. The plastic stretched around the cedar box with a low squeak. Aunt Linda looked away. Russell, maybe just set that one aside, she said, but her voice had no spine in it. He turned on her. Linda, please. You want to sort through more of Dad's nonsense? You barely came by. Her face flushed. I came when I could. And I was here when it mattered, he said. There it was. His crown. His shield. His excuse. He looked back at me and lowered his voice. You don't get to walk in after the funeral and act like you know what Dad wanted. I kept my hand inside my pocket. What did he want? Russell's eyes narrowed. He wanted this place cleaned up. He told me to clear all useless papers. All useless papers, I repeated. That's right. And the cedar box was useless? He glanced at Diane, just for half a second. Yes. Diane pulled the trash bag closer to her side. Brooke rubbed her forehead. Can we please not do this? The neighbors are probably watching. The cars are still outside. People just left the funeral lunch. That was why they were doing it now. The house was noisy. The porch was crowded with coats and casserole dishes. Everyone was tired. Everyone wanted peace more than truth. Russell knew grief made people obedient. He knew a family could be pressured into silence if the room was heavy enough. I looked at Aunt Linda. You heard him say Grandpa told him to throw away papers? Linda's lips parted. I heard him say Arthur wanted things cleared. That is not the same thing. Russell stepped closer. Careful, Grace. The word careful changed the air. It was not grief anymore. It was warning. My pulse beat in my ears, but my voice steadied. Why are you afraid of a box? He smiled, but this time there was no humor in it. I'm afraid of watching my niece embarrass herself over a dead man's clutter. I looked at the trash bag again. Grandpa's cedar scent still cut through the plastic, faint but there. A small, stubborn proof that it existed. Then leave it, I said. No. Open it. No. Give it to me. No. Each answer got shorter. Each answer told me more. Diane moved toward the back door. I followed one step. Russell blocked me. His shoulder was inches from mine, his black funeral suit smelling like rain and bitter cologne. You touch that bag, he said quietly, and I will tell everyone you lost control after the funeral. I looked past him at Brooke. She stared at the floor. I looked at Aunt Linda. Her tissue was torn in half now. Nobody moved. That was the specific loss I felt in that room. Not just Grandpa. The loss of believing grief made people honest. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it at my side, still recording. Russell didn't notice. Diane opened the back door. Cold air rushed in. The kitchen curtain lifted slightly, then fell. Diane, I said. She paused. For 1 second, pretend this was your father's last request. Her face tightened. My father didn't leave a house full of problems. Russell muttered, just take it out. And then Diane carried Grandpa's cedar box outside in a trash bag. The door closed behind her. I stood there with my hand around my phone, my chest tight, my throat burning, and my grandfather's last warning echoing louder than every voice in that kitchen. Russell exhaled like he had won. Now, he said, we can be adults. I looked at him. No. Brooke whispered, Grace, please. I did not look away from Russell. No, Brooke. Adults don't throw away proof. The word proof hit the room like a plate dropping. Russell's face changed. Only for a second. But I saw it. So did Aunt Linda. Her eyes lifted from the table, and for the first time that afternoon, she looked less annoyed with me and more afraid of him. Russell recovered fast. What proof? I let the silence stretch. The rain kept tapping the glass. The old refrigerator hummed behind us. My thumb pressed stop on the recording. I saved the file under one word. Box. Then I slid the phone back into my coat pocket and said the sentence Grandpa had left me with. He told me it wasn't paper. Russell did not blink. He said it was proof. For the first time all day, nobody defended him. And that was when I knew the box had never been trash. Diane came back through the kitchen door without the trash bag. Her gloves were damp. The smell of wet leaves followed her inside, sharp and cold, and I had to stop myself from running past her to the porch. Russell looked at me like the matter was finished. There, he said. Done. I stared at Diane's empty hands. Where is it? She pulled off one glove finger at a time. Outside with the rest of the trash. Which bin? Grace, she said gently, listen to yourself. That softness was worse than yelling. It was practiced. It was the same voice she used when Grandpa forgot where he put his glasses, even when they were sitting on the table beside him. You need air, Diane said. You've had a terrible day. I need the box. No, sweetheart. You need to go home before you say something you can't take back. Brooke nodded from beside the counter. She's right. This is getting uncomfortable. I turned to her. Grandpa's box is in a trash bin, and I'm the one making people uncomfortable? Brooke's face tightened. You keep saying Grandpa like the rest of us didn't lose him. Aunt Linda stood from the table. Maybe we should all take a breath. Russell laughed under his breath. That would require Grace not treating everyone like criminals. I looked at him. I haven't called you a criminal. Not yet. The word slipped out too fast. Diane looked at him. Just one quick look. But I saw it. So did Matthew, who had been standing near the hallway with his tie loosened and his arms folded. Until then, he had said almost nothing. Uncle Russell, Matthew said slowly, why would you say that? Russell's eyes cut toward him. Because that's where this little performance is going. It isn't a performance, I said. Diane moved closer to me, lowering her voice. Grace, grief can make people see patterns that aren't there. Your grandfather kept hundreds of things. Maybe you're attaching meaning to this one because you miss him. My throat tightened again, but I forced my face still. I miss him because he was the only person in this room who didn't talk to me like I was weak. Diane's smile disappeared. Aunt Linda whispered, Grace. No, I said. You all keep telling me I'm emotional, but nobody can explain why an old box had to be thrown out before we even finished clearing the kitchen. Russell stepped toward the pile of cardboard boxes by the pantry. We are not doing this all afternoon. He picked up a stack of Grandpa's old mail and dropped it into another trash bag. The sound of envelopes hitting plastic made my stomach turn. I took out my phone and opened the family group chat. My thumb shook as I scrolled past funeral arrangements, flower photos, Diane's messages about casseroles, Brooke's reminder about black clothing. Then I saw it. Russell's message from 3 days earlier. Make sure the cedar box disappears before Monday. Dad got weird about it again. My skin went cold. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I tapped Russell's name and screenshotted the timestamp. Brooke noticed. What are you doing? Saving things. Russell turned. What things? I held the phone against my chest. Messages. His face hardened. Diane reached for my arm. Grace, don't make this uglier. I stepped back before she could touch me. Why does Monday matter? The kitchen went quiet. Aunt Linda looked at Russell. Russell? He shrugged. Monday is when the realtor comes to look at the house. I blinked. The realtor? Brooke frowned. I thought we were just discussing options. We are, Russell said quickly. Looking doesn't mean selling. Matthew pushed away from the hallway wall. Grandpa was buried this morning. Russell pointed at him. Do not judge me for being practical. Practical is changing locks, I said. Practical is checking bills. Practical is not throwing away a box before a bank day. Diane's eyes sharpened. I had not said bank before. I knew I had hit something. What bank day? She asked. I looked at her. I didn't say bank day. Yes, you did. No, I said quietly. You did. Her mouth closed. Russell's hand tightened around the stack of mail. Brooke looked between them. Wait. What is going on? Nothing is going on, Russell snapped. Matthew turned to me. What did Grandpa tell you? I almost answered. Then I remembered the voice memo in my pocket. The screenshots on my phone. The cedar box outside. I was done giving them truth they could twist before I protected it. He told me enough. Russell scoffed. That means nothing. It meant enough for you to throw away the box. He threw the mail down. Fine. Go dig in the trash like a raccoon if it makes you feel noble. Diane gasped. Russell. But her shock sounded late. Like she remembered she was supposed to be kind. I walked toward the back door. Diane blocked me. Not fully. Just enough. Grace, stop. Move. You're shaking. I know. You're not thinking clearly. I am thinking clearer than I have all day. She lowered her voice. You start accusing Russell, and this family will remember it. Not the box. Not the funeral. This. There it was again. Control dressed as concern. My fear rose hot behind my ribs. For 1 second, I saw Grandpa in his chair, his cardigan sleeves loose around his wrists, his hand covering mine as he whispered, "Don't let them make you feel loud for telling the truth." I breathed once. Then I stepped around Diane. The back porch boards were slick under my shoes. The porch light buzzed above me even though the afternoon was gray, and 3 black trash bags sat beside the steps. I opened the first bag. Coffee grounds. Paper plates. Wilted lilies. Not the box. Behind me, Diane said, "Grace, please come inside." I opened the second bag. Old newspapers. Broken picture frames. A cracked plastic bin. Not the box. My chest tightened. I opened the third bag. Nothing but kitchen trash. No cedar. No brass latch. I looked toward the curb. The city trash bin stood with its lid half open. Empty. I turned slowly. Where's the first bag? Diane looked past me. Russell stood in the doorway. His voice was flat. Pickup came early. No, it didn't. It did. I pulled out my phone. Russell's expression changed. Who are you calling? The sanitation office. Brooke came onto the porch behind him. Grace, that's insane. What's insane is everyone panicking over trash. Matthew walked past Brooke and stood beside me. Let her call. Russell glared at him. Stay out of it. Matthew didn't move. I searched the town sanitation number and called. The line rang 3 times. A woman answered, cheerful and bored. Westbridge Sanitation. Hi, I said. My name is Grace Bennett. I'm at 214 Holloway Road. Has trash pickup happened on this street yet? Russell came down one porch step. Diane whispered, Grace. The woman typed for a moment. No, ma'am. Holloway Road is scheduled between 4 and 6 today. Driver hasn't reached that block. My hand went still. Thank you. I ended the call. The porch light kept buzzing. I looked at Russell. You lied. He looked at Diane. Diane looked away. Aunt Linda had come to the kitchen doorway now, one hand at her mouth. Russell, she said, where did you put it? His face flushed. I moved one bag to the side yard so animals wouldn't get into it. Then get it, Matthew said. Russell pointed at him again. You don't tell me what to do in my father's house. I said, Grandpa's house. That landed. For the first time, Russell had no fast answer. I walked off the porch toward the side yard. My shoes sank into wet grass. The hem of my coat brushed against my knees, heavy with rain. Near the old shed, behind two stacked lawn chairs, sat one black trash bag. Tied twice. Hidden. I took a photo before touching it. Then I took another from farther back, with the shed and porch in frame. Russell's voice came from behind me. Don't open that. I turned. Why? His lips pressed together. Diane answered for him. Because you're making this look worse than it is. I almost laughed. You hid Grandpa's box in the side yard after saying pickup took it. How should it look? Brooke's voice was weaker now. Maybe he just forgot. Matthew said, he didn't forget. He lied. Aunt Linda whispered, Russell, tell us what's in the box. Russell stared at her. And that was her shift. Small, but real. She was not defending him anymore. She was afraid to ask, but she asked. I untied the bag. The cedar box was inside. Wet plastic clung to its corners, but the brass latch was still there. My fingers hovered above it. For 1 second, guilt hit me so sharply I could barely breathe. Grandpa had trusted me. And I had almost let them bury his last warning under coffee grounds and funeral plates. I lifted the box out. Russell stepped forward. I stepped back. No. He held out his hand. Grace, give it to me. Diane's voice softened again. Sweetheart, let Russell handle it. He knows the estate paperwork. I looked at her. How long have you known it mattered? She blinked. What? You heard me. She did not answer. That was answer enough. I tucked the cedar box under my arm and opened my email with my other hand. Grandpa had kept an old envelope in his desk drawer. I had saved it months ago because his handwriting was on the back. Westbridge County Bank. Attention, Howard Pierce. I typed fast. My grandfather Arthur Bennett instructed me to contact Mr. Howard Pierce regarding a cedar box and family estate records. The box was nearly discarded today. I am requesting urgent guidance. I attached the screenshots. I attached the photos from the side yard. Then I forwarded the email to myself. Russell watched me press send. His face went pale around the mouth. What did you just do? I held the cedar box tighter. I stopped asking my family for permission to protect Grandpa. The phone made the soft whoosh sound. Sent. And somehow, for the first time since the funeral, the house felt less empty. The cedar box was heavier than I remembered. Not because of what was inside. Because of what everyone around me suddenly wanted to pretend was not inside. Russell stood near the shed with rain caught in his hair, breathing through his nose like he was trying not to shout. Give me the box, Grace. I held it against my coat. No. Diane stepped beside him, her voice low and careful. Sweetheart, this is exactly what I was worried about. You are making decisions from panic. Matthew looked at the box, then at Russell. She found it hidden behind the shed. Russell snapped, I moved it. You said pickup came early. I was mistaken. I looked at him. You were not mistaken. You were caught. Aunt Linda stood on the porch, one hand on the railing. Her face looked pale under the gray sky. "Russell," she said, "why didn't you just say you moved it?" He turned toward her. "Because I knew she would do this. I knew Grace would turn a box into a courtroom." His tactic changed so smoothly it almost worked. He stopped fighting the box. He started fighting Grandpa's memory. "Dad was not well," Russell said. "Everyone here knows that." I felt my fingers tighten around the cedar. "Do not do that." "Do what?" "Tell the truth?" "No. Use his age like a weapon." Diane sighed. "Grace, nobody is attacking Arthur." "Yes, you are." Brooke came down the porch steps slowly, her black heels sinking into the wet grass. "Grandpa did get confused sometimes. He forgot names on bad days," I said. "He did not forget who he trusted." Russell laughed without smiling. "He trusted everyone until the end. Then he accused everyone." "Me. Diane. The mailman. The cable company. He thought people were hiding things from him." Aunt Linda looked down. "He did say strange things sometimes." I turned to her. "What did he say?" Linda's mouth trembled. "That papers were moving." The rain seemed louder for a moment. Russell pointed at her. "Exactly. Papers were moving. People were plotting. That box was proof. The bank was proof. Everything was proof." My stomach dropped. He had said bank. Not me this time. Matthew heard it too. He stepped closer. "Why do you keep mentioning the bank?" Russell's face went still. "I am giving examples." "No," Matthew said. "You are answering a question no one asked." Diane cut in fast. "Matthew, please don't feed this." He looked at her. "I'm not feeding anything. I'm listening." That was the first time I heard doubt in his voice that was not aimed at me. I wiped rain from the top of the cedar box with my sleeve. The wood was damp but not ruined. The brass latch was cold under my thumb. I had opened that latch as a child, sitting cross-legged beside Grandpa's chair while he watched old baseball games and pretended not to notice me peeking at folded envelopes. "Can I see the secrets?" I had asked him once. He had smiled and said, "Not yet, Gracie. One day, when people stop smiling at you, you'll know it's time." I hated that I finally understood him. "Open it," Matthew said quietly. Russell barked, "No." Everyone looked at him. He lowered his voice. "I mean, not out here in the rain. For God's sake, we just buried Dad. Can we show a little respect?" "Respect?" I said. "You put it in a trash bag." Brooke crossed her arms, but her voice was less sharp now. "Maybe we should go inside and open it on the table." Diane shook her head. "No. The estate attorney should handle anything important." I looked at her. 5 minutes ago, it was junk. Her lips pressed together. Aunt Linda whispered, "Grace is right." Russell turned on her. "What?" Linda gripped the porch railing. "You said it was useless." Diane said it was sentimental. Now suddenly it needs an attorney. Russell stared at her like she had betrayed him. She looked afraid. But she did not take it back. I walked past them toward the kitchen. Nobody stopped me this time. Inside, the house was warmer, but not comforting. The air smelled like old wood, funeral lilies, and damp coats piled over the chairs. I set the cedar box on the kitchen table. The sound was soft. Aunt Linda came in behind me. Brooke stood near the counter. Matthew stayed by the door. Russell and Diane entered last. That told me something too. People with nothing to hide rush ahead. People guarding something watch the exits. I put my thumb under the brass latch. "Grace," Russell said. I paused. His voice had changed again. Not angry now. almost tired. Before you open it, you need to understand something about your grandfather. I looked at him. No. You don't want context? I want records. His jaw tightened. Dad was angry with me. Why? Because I was trying to help him. Diane nodded quickly. He handled so much. Arthur resisted help, and Russell took the blame for every hard decision. I looked at Aunt Linda. Is that true? She hesitated. Russell did help. Russell lifted his chin. Thank you. Then Linda added, but Arthur didn't like him handling the mail. Russell's face darkened. Linda. I turned to her. What do you mean? She looked at the table instead of him. Arthur told me some bank letters never reached him. Diane said, that is not fair. He misplaced things. Maybe, Linda said. But he was upset. Russell slammed his palm on the table. The cedar box jumped. Enough. The room froze. Brooke flinched. Matthew's voice went low. Don't hit the table. Russell looked at him. This is my father's house. No, Matthew said. It was your father's house. I opened the latch. Inside was a stack of folded papers tied with a faded blue ribbon. A small bank envelope. And an empty square at the bottom where something had once rested. A key shape. My breath caught. Matthew leaned closer. What's missing? I touched the empty mark. Dust had settled around the outline, leaving clean wood beneath. A key. Russell said nothing. Diane looked at the window. Brooke whispered, a key to what? I lifted the bank envelope. Westbridge County Bank. Mr. Howard Pierce. My hands were cold now, but steady. I opened the envelope. Inside was only a torn corner of paper and a note in Grandpa's handwriting. Grace, ask for Mr. Pierce. That was all. 4 words. But they were mine. I sat down slowly. For a moment, the kitchen blurred at the edges. I had spent the whole day fighting for the box, and still something was gone. The key was gone. The full note was gone. Maybe I had been too late. Maybe Grandpa had trusted me with a door, and Russell had already stolen the handle. Diane's voice softened. Oh, Grace. I looked up. She was watching my face, not the box. Like she had been waiting for despair. You see, she said. There is nothing here that proves anything. Just an old note. Russell exhaled. Dad wrote notes to everyone. I stared at the missing key mark. Not at him. At the empty place. That emptiness hurt more than the insults. Grandpa had protected something for years, and now part of it was missing from the box I had failed to save quickly enough. My eyes burned, but I would not cry in front of him. Matthew picked up his phone. What are you doing? Russell asked. Taking a picture. Of what? The missing key mark. Russell laughed. You're photographing dust now? Matthew looked at him. I'm photographing what you don't want photographed. Brooke moved closer to the table. Grace, what does the note say? I slid it toward her. She read it. Her face changed. Ask for Mr. Pierce. Diane reached for the note. I pulled it back. No. I only want to look. You wanted it in a trash bag. Her eyes flashed. For a second, the fake kindness cracked. Then a knock sounded at the back door. Everyone turned. Mrs. Whitaker stood outside with her hood pulled over her silver hair, holding a foil-covered dish against her chest. Grandpa's neighbor. I opened the door. Mrs. Whitaker? She looked past me into the kitchen. I'm sorry to bother you, dear. I brought the chicken casserole back. Your grandfather hated when dishes didn't find their way home. Her eyes landed on the cedar box. She went quiet. Russell stepped forward. Thank you, Mrs. Whitaker. We're in the middle of family matters. She ignored him. Arthur got it back then. I looked at her. Got what back? The box, she said. He said he had to take it to the bank and bring it back before anyone noticed. The room changed. Even the refrigerator hum felt louder. Russell said, Mrs. Whitaker, with respect, Dad told you all kinds of stories. She looked at him with a calm that made him smaller. Arthur was in his navy coat. He had shaved. He asked me if his tie was straight. My throat tightened. When? 2 weeks ago, she said. A Tuesday morning. A bank car picked him up because he said he didn't want to ask you for a ride. Matthew turned to Russell. You said Grandpa hadn't left the house in a month. Russell's mouth opened. No words came out. Mrs. Whitaker looked at me. He said if anyone asked, he was getting his pension papers sorted. But he told me one more thing. I held the note so tightly the paper bent. What? He said, if Grace comes looking for Pierce, tell her I was not confused. No one spoke. The words moved through me like warmth after hours in the cold. I was not too late. Grandpa had left more than a box. He had left witnesses. I looked at Russell. You lied about him. He swallowed. He was my father. And you used that to make everyone doubt him. Diane whispered, Grace, be careful. I turned to her. No. You be careful. I picked up my phone and called Westbridge County Bank again. This time, when the automated voice asked for a name, mine did not shake. Grace Bennett, I said. Russell took one step toward me. Matthew stepped between us. I looked at the cedar box, the empty key mark, the bank envelope, and Grandpa's 4 words. Then I left the message clearly. This is Grace Bennett. My grandfather Arthur Bennett told me to ask for Mr. Howard Pierce. I have the cedar box, but the key is missing. And I need to know what he was protecting. The bank did not call back right away. For 23 minutes, the farmhouse held its breath. I sat at Grandpa's kitchen table with the cedar box in front of me, the open lid facing the ceiling like a mouth that had tried to speak too late. Russell paced near the sink. Diane stood beside him, whispering things I could not hear. Brooke kept looking at the note, then looking away. Matthew leaned against the doorway with his arms crossed, but this time he was not watching me like I was the problem. He was watching Russell. Aunt Linda sat across from me. Her tissue was gone now. She had twisted it so many times it had fallen apart in her lap. Mrs. Whitaker had left the casserole on the counter and stayed near the back door, quiet but firm, like she knew her presence was now evidence. I touched the empty key mark inside the box. There had been something there. Something Grandpa expected me to find. My chest ached with the thought that he might have spent his last weeks trying to protect me while I was living my normal life, answering work emails, buying groceries, telling myself Sunday visits were enough. The phone rang. Everyone looked at me. I stared at the unknown number until the second ring. Then I answered. This is Grace Bennett. A man's voice came through, calm and measured. Miss Bennett, this is Howard Pierce from Westbridge County Bank. I'm calling regarding your message about Arthur Bennett. My hand tightened around the phone. Yes. Thank you for calling. Russell stopped pacing. Diane's eyes sharpened. Mr. Pierce continued, before I say anything further, I need to verify your identity. Your grandfather left specific instructions, but I cannot disclose account details without proper confirmation. Russell let out a short laugh. There. See? Bank privacy. This is done. I ignored him. What do you need from me? Your full legal name, date of birth, current address, and the last 4 digits of the phone number your grandfather listed for you. I gave him everything. My voice stayed steady until he asked one more question. Miss Bennett, did your grandfather ever give you a phrase involving a porch light? My throat closed. Grandpa's porch light. The one he never turned off until I drove away. I looked down at the cedar box. He said, "A porch light is not for the house. It's for the person trying to find their way back." Mr. Pierce went quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That verifies the personal note." Russell stared at me. Diane's lips parted. Brooke whispered, "Grandpa said that?" I kept the phone to my ear. "What did he leave?" Mr. Pierce's voice stayed professional. "I still cannot give full details over the phone. But I can confirm your grandfather placed an internal instruction on his file. If he missed a scheduled appointment or passed away before completing a verification meeting, the bank was to contact you." "When was the appointment?" "Monday at 10 a.m. The room went silent. "Monday." The word from Russell's message. "Make sure the cedar box disappears before Monday." I looked at him. He looked away first. Mr. Pierce said, "Your email mentioned the cedar box. Do you currently have it?" "Yes." "Do not give it to anyone." Russell stepped toward me. "Put it on speaker." I shook my head. Mr. Pierce heard the movement in the room. "Miss Bennet, are you somewhere safe to speak?" I looked at Russell. Then Diane. Then the cedar box. "No." Matthew straightened. Russell snapped, "Don't be dramatic." I said into the phone, "I am at my grandfather's house with family members who tried to discard the box." Mr. Pierce's tone changed. "Then I advise you to photograph the contents, preserve all original items, and send copies to my official bank email only. Do not alter, mark, or remove anything further." Diane stepped closer. "Grace, let Russell handle this with the bank. He knows the estate paperwork." Mr. Pierce paused. "Who is speaking?" "My Aunt Diane." Russell reached for the phone. I pulled back. "Grace," he said softly, "come on. Let's not make this ugly. I can help you. Dad's accounts are complicated." That softness was new. Not kindness. A rope. He had insulted me first. Then Diane had called me emotional. Then they had twisted Grandpa into a confused old man. Now Russell wanted to stand beside me long enough to take the wheel. I looked at him. "You don't get to help with something you tried to bury." His eyes darkened, but his voice stayed gentle. "You're exhausted. You don't understand what you're touching." "I understand enough." "No," he said. "You understand a phrase and an empty box." Mr. Pierce said, "Miss Bennet, please confirm the box remains in your possession." "It does." "Good." Aunt Linda's voice trembled. "Mr. Pierce?" I looked at her. She leaned toward the phone. "This is Linda Mercer. Arthur's sister." Mr. Pierce said, "Mrs. Mercer, I cannot discuss bank matters with you." "I know," Linda said. "But I need to say something." Russell snapped, "Linda, stop." She flinched. Then she looked at me. "I should have said it earlier." Diane whispered, "Linda, this is not the time." Linda shook her head. "No. It is exactly the time." Her hands were trembling, but her voice found something solid. "Russell handled Arthur's mail for months." I closed my eyes for 1 second. There it was. The missing road between Grandpa's fear and Russell's panic. Russell slapped the counter. "I picked up mail because Dad asked me to." Linda faced him. "He asked you to bring it in. Not open it in your car." Brooke turned to Russell. "You opened Grandpa's mail?" Russell's face flushed. "I sorted bills. That is what responsible adults do." Matthew said, "Responsible adults do not hide bank notices." Diane's voice dropped. "Careful, Matthew." He looked at her. "Why does everyone who asks a question need to be careful?" Diane turned to me. "You need to think about what happens after today, Grace." The kitchen air cooled around her words. "Meaning what?" I asked. Meaning estates are delicate. Accusations can affect how people see you. Attorneys listen to behavior. Families remember who brought shame into a house. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because the threat was so polished she thought I might miss it. You're saying if I protect Grandpa's evidence, I might lose my place in the inheritance discussion? Diane did not blink. I am saying people who start fires should not be surprised when they get burned. Mr. Pierce spoke through the phone. Miss Bennett, I recommend you document that statement as well. Diane's face changed. I had already tapped record on the call screen. Russell saw my thumb move. What are you recording? The truth, I said. Brooke covered her mouth. Linda looked at me with wet eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I thought Russell was just trying to keep things organized. I wanted to be angry at her. Part of me was. But under that anger was a smaller pain. The kind that comes when you realize people do not always choose lies because they believe them. Sometimes they choose lies because truth would cost them comfort. I looked at Linda. You trusted the loudest person in the room. She nodded once. I did. Mr. Pierce said, Miss Bennett, can you email the photographs now? Yes. I put him on speaker, set the phone beside the box, and opened my camera. Russell moved toward the table. Matthew stepped in front of him. Back up. Russell glared. You're taking her side now? Matthew's voice was quiet. No. I'm taking Grandpa's. That line landed alone. I photographed the open box. The folded papers. The bank envelope. The note. The empty key mark. The torn blue ribbon. Then I opened my email and attached everything. I added the screenshots of Russell's message. I added the photo of the hidden trash bag behind the shed. I added the voice memo from earlier. My finger hovered over send. For 1 second, I felt the old fear again. The fear of becoming the difficult woman. The dramatic niece. The one who broke the family open on the day of the funeral. Then I looked at Grandpa's handwriting. Grace, ask for Mr. Pierce. He had not asked me to be liked. He had asked me to ask. I pressed send. The phone made that soft sound again. Mr. Pierce said, received. Russell whispered, you have no idea what you just did. I looked at him. I think I do. Mr. Pierce cleared his throat. Miss Bennett, based on your grandfather's standing instruction, I will come to the property tomorrow morning with sealed documents and the estate attorney copied on my notice. Until then, keep the box secure. Russell's jaw worked. Diane looked suddenly tired. Brooke leaned against the counter like the floor had shifted under her. Linda wiped her eyes. I closed the cedar box and held it against me. The wood was cold now, but my hands were not shaking anymore. If you believe receipts matter more than family performance, keep watching for the truth. Because that night, I stopped begging them to remember Grandpa honestly. I started building the record that would force them to. I slept with the cedar box beside my bed. Not in the bed. Not under it. Beside it, on Grandpa's old nightstand, where the moonlight touched the brass latch every time the clouds moved. I did not really sleep. Every noise in the house became a warning. The heater clicking. The floorboards settling. The low scrape of branches against the upstairs window. I kept thinking of Grandpa alone in this room, hearing the same sounds, knowing something was coming and still finding a way to leave me a trail. By morning, my mouth tasted like old coffee and fear. I carried the cedar box downstairs in both hands. Matthew was already in the kitchen. He had made coffee, but the pot sat untouched. You look terrible, he said. So do you. He almost smiled. Then he looked at the box. Did anyone try to come in? No. Good. I set the box on the table. Where is everyone? Russell and Diane are in the front room. Brooke is with Aunt Linda. Nobody's talking much. That won't last. It already didn't. He slid his phone across the table. I looked at him. What is this? Grandpa left me a voicemail 3 weeks ago. I forgot about it because it came in while I was at work, and then the funeral happened. My fingers hovered over the phone. What does it say? Matthew's jaw tightened. Play it. I tapped the screen. Grandpa's voice came through thin and tired, but clear. Matthew, it's Arthur. I don't want to worry your mother, but if Russell talks about selling before Grace speaks to the bank, slow him down. Don't sign anything. Don't let them rush the house. I'm fixing what I should have fixed years ago. The message ended. For a moment, neither of us moved. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast, even though nobody had made breakfast. I played it again. Don't let them rush the house. Matthew rubbed both hands over his face. I should have listened to it. You didn't know. I should have. That was the same guilt wearing a different coat. I knew it too well. Forward it to me, I said. He nodded. And to yourself. I already did. I looked at him. He met my eyes. I'm done being neutral. Before I could answer, Russell walked into the kitchen in a clean navy sweater, like a man dressing for respectability. Diane followed in a cream cardigan, holding a leather folder against her chest. Brooke came after them, pale and quiet. Aunt Linda stood in the hallway and did not come all the way in. Russell looked at the cedar box, then at Matthew's phone. What's going on? Matthew picked up his coffee mug. Nothing you need to manage. Russell gave a dry smile. That's new. Diane set the leather folder on the counter. Grace, before the bank manager arrives, we need to talk as a family. I said, no. Her eyebrows rose. You don't even know what I was going to say. Yes, I do. Russell pulled out a chair and sat without being invited. You think you've uncovered a conspiracy because Dad left a sentimental note. But the rest of us still have to deal with reality. What reality? Bills. Property taxes. Repairs. The house roof. Medical debt. Funeral costs. You get to hold a box and feel righteous. I get to clean up the mess. Brooke looked down at her hands. Aunt Linda whispered from the hallway, Russell, don't. He turned to her. No, Linda. I'm tired of being painted as the villain because I was the only one willing to make hard decisions. Diane placed a hand on his shoulder. Your uncle sacrificed more than anyone wants to admit. I looked at her. What did he sacrifice? She lifted her chin. Time. Money. Peace. His own family life. Matthew said, and Grandpa's mail? Her face tightened. Russell leaned back. You want the truth, Matthew? Your grandfather was stubborn. He sat on this house like it was a museum while repairs piled up. Someone had to think ahead. I opened Matthew's voicemail and placed the phone on the table. Grandpa's voice filled the kitchen again. If Russell talks about selling before Grace speaks to the bank, slow him down. Russell went still. Diane's hand dropped from his shoulder. Brooke whispered, that's Grandpa. Matthew said, yes. Russell's mouth tightened. Dad left dramatic messages when he was upset. Then why did he mention the bank again? I asked. Russell's eyes cut to me. Because you two keep feeding each other paranoia. I took out my phone. Did paranoia schedule a realtor before Grandpa was buried? Diane's face changed first. Russell said, what? I opened the email I had found that morning on Grandpa's old desktop. The computer had no password. Maybe Russell thought nobody would check it. Maybe he thought grief made people stupid. I turned the screen toward them. Westbridge Realty. Appointment confirmation. Property valuation for 214 Holloway Road. Requested by Russell Bennett. Timestamp, 2 days before Grandpa died. Brooke covered her mouth. Aunt Linda stepped into the kitchen fully. 2 days before? Russell stood. That was preliminary. Grandpa was alive. He was dying. That is not an answer. His voice rose. I knew where this was going. The house had to be sold eventually. Matthew stood too. You booked the realtor before the funeral flowers were even ordered. Russell pointed at him. Don't act noble now. You ignored your own grandfather's call. Matthew flinched. The hit was cruel because it had truth in it. I saw him absorb it. Then I saw him choose not to fold. You're right, Matthew said. I missed it. Russell blinked. Matthew continued, but I'm listening now. The room went quiet. Diane stepped forward. Grace, you're twisting practical steps into evil motives. No. I'm lining them up. I counted on my fingers. You wanted the cedar box gone before Monday. You lied about the trash pickup. You hid the bag behind the shed. You opened Grandpa's mail. You booked a realtor before he died. And now you want us to believe all of that is love? Russell's face reddened. You have no idea what Dad put me through. Aunt Linda's voice broke. Then tell us. He looked at her. What? Tell us what he put you through that made you throw away his box. He had no answer ready for that. A knock came at the back door. Mrs. Whitaker stood outside again, wrapped in a brown raincoat, holding a small white envelope. I opened the door. I'm sorry, she said. I found this under the mat on my side porch. Arthur must have slipped it there. Russell moved quickly. I'll take that. Mrs. Whitaker pulled it back. No, you will not. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. She handed it to me. On the front, Grandpa had written one word. Grace. The paper felt dry and thin. My hands began to shake, so Matthew stood beside me without touching the envelope. I opened it. Inside was a folded note. Gracie, if the box is gone or broken, remember this. Russell knows the house is not his to sell. He knows the bank has the proof. He wanted me to sign a new paper and I refused. I am tired, but I am not confused. My eyes burned. Not from shock this time. From relief so sharp it hurt. I read the last line aloud. I am tired, but I am not confused. Aunt Linda started crying. Brooke sat down slowly. Diane whispered, "Oh my God." Russell looked at the note like it was alive. That is private. I looked up. No. That is evidence. His voice dropped. You don't understand what he did to me. There it is, Matthew said. Russell turned. What? The part where your sadness becomes permission. Russell's face twisted. I was his son. And Grace was his choice, Mrs. Whitaker said from the doorway. Everyone looked at her. She stepped inside. I heard you once, she said to Russell. Through the kitchen window. You shouted that the box would ruin everything. Russell's eyes narrowed. You were spying? No, she said. You were loud. Brooke looked at him. Ruin what? Diane whispered, Russell. He looked at her sharply. That was when I understood. Diane knew pieces. Not all but enough. My phone buzzed. An email notification. Westbridge County Bank. I opened it.mr. Pierce had replied. Miss Bennett, I will arrive at 10 a.m. with sealed documents under your grandfather's instruction. The estate attorney has been notified. Please ensure the cedar box and all related notes remain available for review. Do not surrender documents to any family member. I read it aloud. Russell's face strained. Aunt Linda wiped her cheeks. Matthew looked at me. Brooke whispered, so he's really coming. I closed the email and held the phone against my chest. Yes. Diane sat down for the first time. Her folder slid from her lap onto the floor. Papers spilled out. Matthew bent to pick them up, then stopped. One page lay face up. Listing agreement draft. Russell Bennett. 214, Holloway Road. I looked at Russell. He looked at the page. Then at me. For the first time, he did not insult me. He did not comfort me. He did not twist Grandpa's memory. He only said one thing. You should have stayed out of this. I picked up Grandpa's note and placed it inside the cedar box. No, Russell. My voice was quiet. You should have left the box alone. At 9:52 a.m., nobody was pretending anymore. The farmhouse felt smaller than it ever had. Russell sat at the head of Grandpa's kitchen table like the chair belonged to him. Diane sat beside him, her hands folded too neatly over the leather folder. Brooke stood near the counter. Aunt Linda sat close to Mrs. Whitaker, no longer trying to explain Russell away. Matthew stood beside me. The cedar box sat between us all. Russell tapped one finger against the table. This meeting is unnecessary. I said nothing. He looked at Matthew. You know that, right? A bank manager is not a judge. Matthew replied, no one said he was. Russell's finger kept tapping. Then let's be clear. Whatever Dad left at the bank, it doesn't change the practical issue. This house costs money. The roof needs work. The taxes are due. We sell it, settle the estate, and stop turning grief into theater. Aunt Linda's voice was quiet. You already had a listing agreement. Russell looked at her. A draft. Before Arthur died. He swallowed. A draft is not a sale. Diane leaned forward. Linda, Russell was preparing for what everyone knew was coming. I looked at her. Grandpa knew something was coming too. Diane's eyes flicked toward the box. Russell noticed. He put both palms on the table. Fine. Let the man come. Let him read whatever old note Dad left. Then we move on. The doorbell rang. Every head turned. The sound moved through the house like a verdict. My stomach tightened, but my hand stayed still. Matthew opened the front door. A man in a dark overcoat stepped inside, carrying a leather document case. His hair was silver at the sides, his glasses thin, his expression calm without being cold. Miss Bennett? I stood. Yes. Grace Bennett. He offered his hand. Howard Pierce. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. His handshake was firm and dry. He looked at the kitchen table, then at the cedar box. Is that the item your grandfather described? Yes. Russell stood too quickly. Mr. Pierce, I'm Russell Bennett. Arthur's son. Mr. Pierce turned to him. I understand. Russell held out his hand. Mr. Pierce shook it once. I appreciate you coming, Russell said. But I want to be clear. My father was unwell near the end. We're trying not to let misunderstandings damage this family. Mr. Pierce removed his gloves slowly. Mr. Bennett, I am here because your father left a written bank instruction, a verification phrase, and a sealed delivery order. I am not here to interpret family emotions. Russell's smile stiffened. Of course. Mr. Pierce sat at the table. Miss Bennett, may I inspect the box without removing anything? Yes. I opened the lid. The brass latch clicked. The sound made my chest ache. Mr. Pierce looked inside, then took a small folder from his case. He did not touch the papers first. He looked at the empty square in the bottom of the box. The safe deposit key is missing. Russell said, if there was a key, none of us saw it. Mr. Pierce looked at him. I did not ask. The room went still. Diane shifted in her chair. Mr. Pierce opened the folder and placed a printed sheet on the table. 2 weeks before his death, Arthur Bennett came to Westbridge County Bank. He brought this cedar box. At his request, my office scanned an inventory of the box contents and placed a copy in his client file. Russell's face changed. Not a lot. Enough. I saw it. Matthew saw it too. Mr. Pierce continued, the inventory included one sealed bank envelope, one handwritten note to Grace Bennett, 3 folded account notices, one safe deposit key numbered 417, and one signed statement alleging pressure from a family member to alter property documents. Diane whispered, Russell. That was the only family reaction. Sharp. Small. Enough. Russell stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. That is ridiculous. Mr. Pierce did not raise his voice. The scanned inventory includes photographs. Russell pointed at the box. Then where is the key? Mr. Pierce looked at the empty mark again. That is a question for the estate attorney, not for me. Russell laughed once, loud and ugly. So that's it? A missing key proves I'm guilty? No, Mr. Pierce said. A missing key proves the box is incomplete. He opened another envelope. But the bank does not rely on the box alone. Russell's laugh died. Mr. Pierce placed a sealed letter on the table. This letter was signed by Arthur Bennett in my presence. It was witnessed by a bank officer and notarized. I am authorized to read the relevant portion. I gripped the edge of the table. The wood felt rough under my fingertips. Mr. Pierce unfolded the letter. His voice stayed even. If this letter is being read, I either missed my Monday appointment or I have passed before completing my final confirmation. My granddaughter Grace Bennett is to receive the contents of my safe deposit file through proper legal channels. My son Russell Bennett is not to handle, remove, sell, transfer, or represent my property interests without review by the estate attorney. Russell's face went dark red. Mr. Pierce read on. I have reason to believe Russell has pressured me to sign papers I did not understand and has withheld mail related to my accounts and property planning. I am tired, but I am not confused. Aunt Linda covered her mouth, but she did not speak. Brooke stared at the floor. Russell slammed his hand down. My father trusted me. That was his one reaction. Not grief. Not denial. Ownership. Mr. Pierce folded the letter. Mr. Bennett, your father trusted you with errands. He did not trust you with his signature. Russell's breathing grew loud. Diane touched his arm. Russell, sit down. He shook her off. No. This is a setup. Grace got to him. She always knew how to play sweet. I looked at him. I saw him once a week. And he liked you better for doing less. The words hit, but they did not enter me. Not anymore. Mr. Pierce opened the next document. This is not about affection. It is about records. He placed 3 papers on the table, one at a time. First, a transfer on death designation for a savings account naming Grace Bennett as beneficiary. Russell's eyes widened. Second, a copy of a trust certification showing the farmhouse was placed into the Arthur Bennett Family Trust 6 months ago. Diane went pale. Russell. Mr. Pierce continued. Third, a notice from the estate attorney confirming Grace Bennett as successor trustee upon Arthur Bennett's death, pending routine probate-adjacent filings were required. Brooke finally looked at me. You own the house? I shook my head. No. Mr. Pierce said, she controls the trust's administration under the terms your grandfather executed. The home is not available for private sale by Mr. Russell Bennett. Russell said, that can be challenged. Yes, Mr. Pierce said. Many things can be challenged. But not by hiding bank notices, discarding a box, or rushing a realtor before the funeral. Russell stepped back. For the first time, he looked less like a man defending family duty and more like a man watching a door lock from the wrong side. Diane's voice was thin. You told me the trust was never signed. Russell turned to her. Not now. She stared at him. You said Arthur only talked about it. You said he was confused and never finished. Aunt Linda looked up. That was the lie. Russell snapped, all of you are enjoying this. No, I said. My voice was quiet. I hate this. And I meant it. I hated the wet leaves still stuck to my shoes. I hated Grandpa's empty chair. I hated that every truth had to arrive with a document because love had not been enough to make them honest. I looked at Russell. I would rather have Grandpa back than any of this. He looked away. Mr. Pierce placed the final envelope on the table. The bank has already flagged the relevant accounts. The estate attorney has received the scanned inventory, Miss Bennett's forwarded evidence, and the notes regarding attempted interference. No property-related documents should be signed today. Matthew exhaled slowly. Mrs. Whitaker closed her eyes. Brooke whispered, so the sale is stopped. Mr. Pierce nodded once. Any sale discussion is suspended until the trust attorney reviews the file. Russell looked at me again. You think this makes you righteous? No. I closed the cedar box. The latch clicked again. This makes Grandpa heard. Mr. Pierce stood. Miss Bennett, the attorney will contact you directly. Until then, keep the original documents secure. I recommend making no private arrangements with any family member. Russell said, you can't tell her not to speak to her own family. Mr. Pierce looked at him. I can advise a verified client contact to preserve evidence. Russell had no answer. Diane sat very still. Aunt Linda wiped her face and looked at me. Grace. I turned to her. I'm sorry, she said. I nodded once. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just acknowledgement. Matthew picked up Grandpa's handwritten note and handed it to me. His voice was low. He knew you'd stand still when the rest of us moved too fast. I looked at the note. Grace, ask for Mr. Pierce. For words had survived a funeral, a trash bag, a lie, a missing key, and a family determined to call truth dramatic. I placed the note back inside the cedar box. Russell watched me do it. This time, he did not reach for it. And that silence told me the power had finally moved. After Mr. Pierce left, the farmhouse did not feel peaceful. It felt exposed. The kind of exposed that comes after someone pulls back a curtain and sunlight hits dust nobody wanted to see. Russell stood by the window with his back to us. Diane sat at the table, staring at the leather folder like the papers inside had betrayed her. Brooke had not spoken in several minutes. Aunt Linda wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand and looked smaller than she had looked the day before. Matthew stood near Grandpa's old radio, holding the torn envelope from the trash bag. I kept the cedar box in front of me. Not hidden. Not clutched. Just there. Russell finally turned. You all think this is over? No one answered. He looked at me. You think a bank manager reading a few papers makes you safe? I met his eyes. No. His mouth twitched. Then you're smarter than I thought. It makes Grandpa's wishes documented. That trust can still be challenged. Then challenge it. The words came out calm. Not brave. Calm. That seemed to bother him more. Diane lifted her head. Russell, stop. He looked at her like she had slapped him. You don't get to say that now. Yes, she said quietly. I do. His face hardened. You believed me. I believed the parts that made life easier. The room went silent. Diane looked at me, then at Aunt Linda, then at the cedar box. I knew Arthur was angry about the mail. I knew you and he fought about selling. I didn't know about the signed letter, but I knew enough to ask more questions. Russell said, Diane. She shook her head. No. I helped you call Grace unstable because it was convenient. My throat tightened, but I said nothing. Diane's voice cracked. That does not make me innocent. Brooke sat down slowly. I called it drama. She looked at me. I'm sorry. I wanted to accept it quickly, because that would have made the room softer. But Grandpa had spent his last week surrounded by people who preferred soft lies. So I told the truth. You called it drama because it was easier than asking why Russell was scared. Brooke nodded. I know. Russell laughed bitterly. Listen to yourselves. One document, and suddenly I'm the monster. Aunt Linda stood. No, Russell. Her voice shook, but she stayed standing. You became the monster one choice at a time. His eyes narrowed. I took care of him. You controlled him. I paid bills. You opened mail. I tried to save this family money. You tried to sell a house that was not yours. His mouth opened. Aunt Linda stepped closer to the table. And I defended you because I was tired. Because you sounded certain. Because it was easier to let the loudest person carry the truth. She looked at me. I was wrong about you, Grace. I looked at her tired face. No. Her brow furrowed. No? You were afraid to be right about him. Aunt Linda closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Yes. Russell grabbed the listing agreement from the floor and crushed it in his hand. You all want a villain because Dad left Grace a little power. Matthew finally moved. He came to the table and placed the torn bank envelope beside the cedar box. The corner was stained from the trash bag, but Grandpa's handwriting still showed along the edge. You threw this away, Matthew said. Russell stared at it. Matthew's voice stayed low. You threw it away because you thought the truth lived inside the box. He looked at the sealed documents Mr. Pierce had left for the attorney's pickup. But Grandpa knew better. I touched the edge of the torn envelope. The paper felt thin and rough beneath my fingertip. For 1 second, I could smell the cedar again. Not strong. Just enough. Enough to pull me back to Grandpa's front room, to his old chair, to the brass latch shining under my cotton cloth while he watched me polish it. You have to be gentle with old things, he had said. I had asked, because they break? He had smiled. No, Gracie. Because they survived. I looked at Russell. I'm not going to yell at you. His eyes flashed. Good. Because I won't stand here and be lectured by you. I'm not going to lecture you either. Then what? I closed the cedar box. The latch clicked softly. I'm going to let the attorney do what Grandpa asked. His jaw tightened. That's it? That's it. You're not going to fight? I already did. Diane looked down. Brooke wiped her eyes. Aunt Linda sat back into her chair like her legs had given out. Russell looked around the kitchen, waiting for someone to rescue him from the silence. Nobody did. That was his consequence before any attorney letter. Not prison. Not shouting. Not a dramatic collapse. Just the room no longer bending toward him. He picked up his coat from the chair. You'll regret this. I said, no, Russell. He paused at the doorway. I regret not believing Grandpa sooner. His face changed for a second. Something like shame passed over it, but it did not stay. He left through the back door. The porch boards creaked once under his weight. Then the door closed. Diane covered her face with both hands. Brooke whispered, what happens now? I looked at the cedar box. Now we stop moving faster than the truth. Matthew nodded. I'll send my voicemail to the attorney. Linda said, I'll write a statement about the mail. Mrs. Whitaker stood near the sink, quiet and steady. I'll write what I heard. I looked at all of them. For the first time, their voices were not protecting Russell. They were protecting what Grandpa had tried to save. I picked up the cedar box with both hands and carried it into the front room. Grandpa's chair sat by the window. His blanket was still folded over one arm. The afternoon sun had come through the clouds and stretched across the wooden floor in a warm square of light. I set the box on the small table beside his chair. Then I placed my hand on the lid. "I'm sorry, I almost lost it," I whispered. Matthew stood in the doorway behind me. "You didn't?" I looked at the brass latch. "No." He made sure I wouldn't. The house was not mine to celebrate. It was mine to protect. Not because of money. Not because I had one. Because Grandpa had left me proof, and proof deserved a safe place to rest. I looked back at the kitchen, where the torn envelope, the scanned records, and the people who had finally stopped pretending were waiting. Grandpa did not leave me revenge. He left me proof. And proof does not need to scream when records can speak. If your family ever tried to bury the truth, or if one small receipt, letter, message, or box changed everything, share your story below. And stay with the last receipt, where the truth may be thrown away, but it does not stay buried.